I don't know if I'm screaming because the car is so loud. It wants to make me scream! Do you hear me? Can you hear me? Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm driving my 2009 Nissan GT-R. And yes, we are back to its natural habitat, which is city driving, normal driving, nothing extreme. That's what a GT-R is for. And welcome to another video of me driving around, which usually ends up in a rant. But if you stay until the end, there will be brownies, which are of no use to you because you cannot eat them. This is not how YouTube works. The topic for today's video came up last week when I was a guest on a podcast by fellow Swiss YouTuber Driving Distilled. He's a crazy man who does videos in English and in Swiss German. So he does every video twice because obviously he doesn't have hobbies, even though he's married and he has 2 little children. But yeah, if you want to check that out, I'll put the link in the description. And I will also put up a QR code for people watching it on a smart TV where they don't see a description. Anyway, I was on this podcast with Driving Distilled and with Map2K, so 2 Swiss YouTubers, and basically they asked why I didn't really do reviews anymore. And I mean, on the one hand, it's because doing reviews is kind of labor intensive and I am lazy. The other reason is also because I feel that cars have become too perfect. If I watch a review on a car, usually I want to know, is it a good car or is it a bad car, or are there better cars around? And honestly, I think we've reached a point where there are no more bad cars. There may be cars that are underwhelming in some aspects, like they may get a bad fuel economy or they may be underpowered, but we don't really have bad cars anymore. I reckon that if you have a car that was built, let's say, within the last 25 years, you have a perfectly fine car that you can drive every day without any issue. Sure, older cars are starting to break, but basically a car from 25 years ago is a car from 1996. And in 1996, you had cars that had, ABS, they had electric windows, air conditioning was becoming popular even here in Europe. So they are perfectly fine cars that you can easily own, and you don't need to buy a new car. I mean, you might want to have a new car because the new infotainment things, and you want to have your CarPlay and Android Auto. But the nice thing is these cars from the mid-90s, they still had replaceable radios. So you could just swap in a new head unit and have all the modern features and still use your old car, which, by the way, is something I reckon is also very ecological. But coming back to reviews, if there are no more bad cars, what do we do reviews for? I mean, sure, it's interesting to compare them with their competitors. So what are the alternatives? How do they stack up? And then, so you can decide between, well, should I buy this brand or should I buy this brand? But as far as I'm concerned, most people usually are not that ready to switch brands. So usually they will be, well, I'll buy that car from that brand because that's the brand I love, or every car that's not from that brand is a bad car, or something like that. So I'm questioning the usefulness of doing reviews. But also the fact that cars are so good makes it really difficult to review a car, because you see, I am not Matt Wilson or Jeremy Clarkson or whoever. I don't drive every new car that's out there. So I can give you an opinion on the car I'm driving right now, but I don't know its 13 competitors and how it stacks up head to head. So if you just want my impression on almost every car is going to be, yeah, it's pretty good, because there are no more bad cars. And I mean, think about it. A 25-year-old car nowadays, a car from 1996, is already in most cases a perfectly fine car. But if I think back, I mean, in 1996, 25 years ago, a 25-year-old car would have been a car from 1971. I think cars have made quite a development between the 70s and the 90s, and I don't see this development repeated from the 90s to now. I mean, sure, we got more assistants and electronic nannies and stuff, but I mean, the things you really want in a car, you really need, like comfort, like air conditioning, electric windows, those basic features, they are basically basic features since the mid-90s, I would say. So to me, reviews of cars are basically almost irrelevant. And personally, I also don't watch reviews. Of course, I watch Top Gear, I watch the Grand Tour, but I don't really watch reviews on YouTube unless I have to buy or I'm interested in buying a specific car. Otherwise, just for entertainment, I don't really care about reviews. I also don't care about reviews because when I started making my own reviews, I didn't want to be biased. I didn't want to be influenced by what other reviewers thought. So I just basically shut myself off. I stopped reading magazines, I stopped watching YouTube videos, and I've never picked it back up, because if you watch most reviews, nobody will come away and say, well, it's a bad car. No, usually it's a good car. It might be a bit too expensive. It might, have too much of a fuel consumption. It might have some little issues, but usually those are things that, how do you even care about them? I'm not that old, but I still remember a time when there was really differences between car manufacturers, because really some manufacturers weren't able to produce the things that others were doing. Point in case for me is Alfa Romeo. Why do people love Alfa Romeo? Why do people like them so much? Well, the thing is, in the post-war era, the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s, Alfa Romeo was building cars like nobody was building them. They were really well-handling sports cars. They had, 5-speed gearbox, when in many other cars they had 4 speeds or 5-speed was an option. They had double overcam engines, which was so exotic back then, and nowadays every car has it. This is why I think nowadays the differentiation between cars and car brands doesn't really exist anymore, because it's also a consequences of globalization and engineers going from one company to another. So the knowledge is basically widespread, and it's not like, oh no, only Alfa Romeo knows how to make a car handle, or only Mercedes-Benz knows how to make a car reliable, which nowadays sounds a bit like a joke. But think about it, in the old days, Mercedes were renowned for their reliability. And this is something that nowadays, I mean, I'm not saying Mercedes is less reliable than other brands, but if you compare them to Toyota, for example, you might think that. But the thing is, every car nowadays has reached a minimum of reliability. I mean, in the 70s, for example, if you wanted a car that could do 250,000 kilometers, yes, you will probably buy a Mercedes-Benz. Nowadays, you can probably do that in a Ferrari. So it's like, okay, the brands have had to reinvent themselves. And what are they using as their marketing ploy, their marketing angle? Usually it's gadgets and toys. And I mean, I like gadgets and toys. You know that in my Lexus I installed this Android adapter in order to have Android in the car, which I love very much. Yeah, but I'm not really prepared to spend the big bucks for my car to have a bit more features. I care about the way a car drives, I care about the way a car feels, and I don't need that many gizmos for that. I know I'm starting to sound as if cars bore me, but I think new cars, they sort of do bore me. And I mean, I don't just drive old cars because I cannot afford the new ones. I sort of now could afford a new car if I was financially very responsible. But I'm not that attracted to them because the old cars are more than good enough, and the new cars, they are a bit all the same. I mean, think also of all the models there are. I remember when I was a kid, for example, BMW, they had like 3 or 4 models. They had a 3 Series, they had a 5 Series, they had a 7 Series. And then maybe they had even an 8 Series or something special on top. But that was it. Now alone BMW must have around 30 models. So there is so many cars, and even for me as a car enthusiast, it feels a bit difficult to keep up. I think the whole thing will get even worse once the electrification starts and all car makers start making electric cars. And it's not because I don't like electric cars. I think they're very good for commuting and everything. The comfort is good. But if you've driven one electric car, you've driven all of them, because they basically all feel the same. There is no difference in feel from the engine because they just don't have an engine. They all feel kind of heavy because they are heavy. And to me, as a car enthusiast, it's a bit difficult to get really excited about all the new electric car models because they are all the same to me. And this is also why I'm absolutely certain that for our exotic supercar manufacturers such as Lamborghini and Ferrari, or even Lotus or whoever, going electric is a mistake. And I bring this analogy up again and again and again, but it's like with the watches. All manufacturers started to switch to electronic watches, and then the people still went, yeah, but we kind of like the mechanical ones. And now there is a thriving industry of mechanical watches, like this Orient Mako 2 that I'm wearing today, which is a very affordable mechanical watch. So if you're interested, Orient Mako 2, I think this is about the $200 watch, something like that. And it's very well made and I like it very much. Of course, I was cheap and haven't paid $200 for it because I bought it used. So I just paid, I think, about 110 Swiss francs for it. And this is a watch that surprised me. I really, really like it and I wear it very often because it's a very high quality watch and it's cheap. So there's no reason for not have a nice watch. People, buy an Orient watch. And I'm not sponsored by them. The only sponsor this YouTube channel has is my wallet. So I think all these high-end sports car manufacturers, yes, I mean, do your electric car, the hypercar like the Rimac with 200,000 million horsepower, just to have the top trumps, the high figures, but also do the internal combustion engine cars for the enthusiasts. So the lightweight, well-handling car with a great sound, because this is the thing that electric will not allow you to have. And also it's the thing you can differentiate yourself with. Because, I mean, if you once bought an electric sports car, why should you ever buy another one? Because the performance, they're not going to be that different. They're all going to be extremely high performance, acceleration from 0 to 100 in less than 3 seconds. I mean, yes, maybe the other one is 0.1 seconds faster, but does it really matter? They will all be heavy. They will all handle less well than a lighter car. And the engine, or the electric motors rather, they will all feel the same. So I also don't see a future for these high-end manufacturers in trying to sell new models to people unless they will do it like the mainstream manufacturers and just sell on features. So self-driving or, you know, gizmos where you can connect your smartphone and stuff like that. But really, is that what you want in a Lamborghini? Is that what you want in a Ferrari? Is that even what you want in an Aston Martin or a Lotus? I don't think so. Therefore, for those specialist manufacturers to survive, I think they need to be part of a larger automotive group where they can offload their emissions in the electric fleet by their mother company so that they can continue doing internal combustion cars and don't have to switch to electric, because I don't think that there will be a large market for it. Because, I mean, even if you have the electric super sports car, I mean, you already have Teslas, which are, you know, like family cars, mid-sized sedans and stuff that do 0 to 100 in 3 seconds or even less. Then what do you do with a Ferrari or with a Lamborghini? Because the laws of physics, they prohibit, you know, big gains in that regard. So in order to prevent the supercars and the exciting sports cars from, you know, becoming even more similar to normal cars, I think the internal combustion engine needs to stick around for a whole lot longer. So my point while driving a Nissan GT-R is that most new cars, most modern cars are kind of similar, are kind of boring, and I mean, they will need to do something to keep the enthusiasts around, because otherwise, how can you be enthusiastic about a car with, you know, electric motors without any sound? I mean, I don't need a Lamborghini just to have the outlandish design if then I can have an SUV that has the same performance. I just don't see how this is going, and I don't see it getting any better in the future. Like a video I did a while ago, I say now is still the best time to get the car you want, because they are still around, you are still allowed to drive them most places, and you don't know what the future brings. So what do you think? Have cars become too perfect? Has their soul been sucked out of them? And do you really fancy new cars anymore? Or are you also a bit jaded about cars like me? Anyway, please comment down below. I always like reading your comments. And if you like this video, please leave a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you like rants and other just automotive related talking while driving around in cars. And that's it. Thanks for watching. And now you will see some brownies. And by the way, these are Barry Lewis brownies. Barry Lewis is a YouTuber. I'm a bit critical of his cooking, but his brownies are awesome.